StephenASmith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves
Stephen A. Smith just dropped a bomb on the WNBA landscape, and this time the fallout could actually change the trajectory of professional women's basketball forever. Just as images surfaced of Caitlin Clark taking over Nike headquarters in Oregon to finalize her historic signature line, the WNBA Players Association made a move that stunned the sports world. They decided to pull the plug on their current contract. On the surface, it looks like a coordinated power play, but according to Stephen A., it's really a massive display of resentment that could backfire in spectacular fashion. The timing is far too suspicious to be a coincidence. You have the league's brightest star securing her financial future independently, while the rest of the league scrambles to rewrite the rules to get a piece of the pie she baked. Insiders say the rage behind the scenes is real, and the jealousy we've seen simmer all season is now on the verge of exploding into a brutal boardroom war. Let's get straight into the chaos, because the implications here are massive. The WNBA Players Association has officially opted out of its collective bargaining agreement 2 years early. For anyone who doesn't follow the business side of sports, this is the nuclear option. This isn't a minor renegotiation or a request for better travel accommodations. This is the players tearing up the entire rulebook and demanding a completely new financial reality. They looked at the record-breaking ratings, sold-out arenas, and non-stop media frenzy that defined this season, and decided they weren't getting a large enough slice of the revenue. They want to strike while the iron is hot. But this is where things get incredibly sticky. The league has been losing money for decades, with reports suggesting losses of roughly $50 million per year until very recently. The sudden influx of cash and attention is almost entirely tied to one rookie class, and more specifically, one player. Yet the demands coming from veteran players suggest they believe this money was owed to them regardless of the new eyes on the product. By opting out now, they're forcing owners to the table with a gun to their heads, threatening a work stoppage if they don't get equity, higher salaries, and better benefits immediately. It's a high-risk gamble that assumes the WNBA's popularity is permanent, rather than a wave driven by a specific phenomenon. While the union was busy drafting legal documents to demand more money from the league, Caitlin Clark was making moves that had nothing to do with a collective bargaining agreement. In a moment that perfectly captures the divide inside the WNBA, Clark was recently spotted at Nike World Headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. She wasn't there for a tour. She was there to work. Reports indicate she's deep in the design process for her signature shoe, the Nike Caitlin 1, and already reviewing future apparel lines. That visit represents everything the rest of the league is chasing: true market value. Clark isn't waiting for a union rep to negotiate her worth. She's generating her own economy. Her Nike deal is rumored to be worth $28 million over 8 years, completely dwarfing her actual WNBA salary. This creates a striking split-screen moment. On one side, you have a player driving the business forward through global brands and products that will sell out in seconds. On the other, you have an entire league opting out of contracts to try and capture the value she created. The optics are undeniable. While the league fights over crumbs, Clark is baking the entire cake. And it fuels the narrative that the resentment toward her isn't just about basketball. It's about the financial gap that's rapidly widening between the chosen one and everyone else. Stephen A. Smith didn't hold back when addressing this dynamic on his show. He essentially confirmed what many fans have suspected since opening week. There is a very real, palpable rage bubbling just beneath the surface of the WNBA. He pointed out the hypocrisy of players who spent months throwing shade at Clark, both physically on the court and verbally on podcasts, only to turn around and use her metrics to leverage a bigger paycheck. Smith warned that you simply cannot have it both ways. You can't treat the golden goose like an outsider, haze her at every opportunity, and then expect to feast on the golden eggs she lays. Smith argues that the veterans are badly miscalculating their leverage. They seem to believe the league's success is the result of their collective hard work over the last 20 years. And while that effort did lay the foundation, the business reality is unavoidable. The exponential growth curve didn't start until Caitlin Clark arrived. Stephen A. emphasized that the owners know this. The TV networks know this. Nike knows this. The only people still in denial are the players who are angry that the spotlight and the money aren't being distributed equally. He called it envy masquerading as fairness, and he warned that if the players push too hard, public sentiment is going to turn against them. To understand why these negotiations are about to get so hostile, you have to look back at the season that led us here. The narrative of jealousy isn't something Stephen A. Smith invented out of thin air. We all watched it play out in 4K. We saw the hard fouls, like the hip check from Kennedy Carter that had nothing to do with basketball. We heard the dismissive comments from legends like Cheryl Swoops, who seemed allergic to giving Clark credit for her records, even going as far as arguably misrepresenting stats to downplay her impact. We watched the constant rookie welcome to the league moments that looked less like competition and more like outright hazing. That behavior created a toxic environment that alienated a massive wave of new fans. These fans tuned in to see Caitlin Clark, and what they saw instead was a league that appeared hostile to its own savior. Now, those same players who participated in or tolerated that behavior are demanding massive raises based on the revenue those very fans brought in. It's a paradox. They want private flights, million-dollar salaries, and the respect that comes with being a major league, but they haven't eliminated the petty infighting that turns off the casual viewer. Stephen A. Smith's point is simple. You can't bite the hand that feeds you and then ask for a second helping. The rage he's describing is the realization that no matter how hard they play, the market has chosen its superstar, and it wasn't one of the veterans. And now, as details of what the players actually want begin to leak, the demands look aggressive. Reports suggest the union isn't asking for a small percentage bump. They're pushing for an entirely new economic model. We're talking about players demanding equity in the league itself, ownership in the WNBA. They're also demanding massive increases to the salary cap, guaranteed charter flights for every game, which cost millions, and expanded benefits for childcare and retirement. On the surface, these sound like reasonable requests for professional athletes. But when you actually look at the balance sheet, it tells a very different story. The WNBA has been subsidized by the NBA for decades. The league simply hasn't generated the profit to justify these demands in the past. The players are betting that the Clark effect is the new normal. They're projecting that ratings will stay this high indefinitely. But what if they don't? What if fans grow tired of the drama and tune out? The leaked demands reveal a growing disconnect between the old guard, who feel they paved the way and deserve back pay, and the cold business reality that the money is flowing specifically because of the new era. It's a classic case of wanting the rewards without acknowledging the source. That brings us to the most uncomfortable part of the story, the golden goose paradox. The WNBA players now find themselves in a position where their financial future depends almost entirely on a player many of them appear to resent. It's a bizarre dynamic. Every time Angel Reese or another rival takes a shot at Clark in the media, they're actively damaging the very brand they're trying to extract money from. Stephen A. Smith highlighted this contradiction perfectly. He pointed out that if you want NBA-level salaries, you need NBA-level behavior, and that includes protecting your assets. In the NBA, when a generational superstar like Michael Jordan or LeBron James comes along, the rest of the league understands that he lifts all boats. They compete hard, but they don't try to tear down the brand. In the WNBA, the energy has been different. There's been a clear resistance to letting Clark become the face of the league. You hear it in the constant "we all built this" rhetoric. While that may be true in a symbolic sense, it's false in a financial one. The rage stems from the fact that meritocracy doesn't care about tenure. You can be a 10-year veteran with a championship ring, but if nobody buys your jersey, your economic value is lower than a rookie who hasn't won anything yet but sells out arenas. Accepting that reality is painful, and that pain is fueling these aggressive contract demands. The players are trying to legislate equality in a market that is inherently unequal, and the danger here is real. The word lockout is starting to circulate in inner circles. If owners examine the balance sheets and decide the players are asking for money that simply doesn't exist yet, they could shut the doors. Imagine the catastrophe. The WNBA finally gaining global relevance, securing major TV deals, earning real respect, only to miss games next season because of a labor dispute. It would be a disaster of epic proportions. StephenASmith hinted that this nightmare scenario is what keeps league executives up at night. The players are betting that owners won't risk killing the momentum. They believe owners are so desperate to keep the Caitlin Clark show running that they'll cave to any demand. But that's a dangerous assumption. The owners understand that brand deals like Clark's Nike partnership are tied to the player, not the league. Clark gets her Nike check whether the WNBA plays or not. She has the leverage to survive a lockout. Most of the rank-and-file players living paycheck to paycheck do not. By opting out, the union has started a game of chicken with billionaires, and historically, the billionaires usually win. If a lockout happens, it won't be because the owners were greedy. It'll be because the players overplayed their hand, mistaking Clark's leverage for their own. And it's not just StephenASmith raising alarms. The entire sports media landscape is watching this unfold with confusion. Voices like Shannon Sharpe and Pat McAfee have openly questioned how the WNBA has handled its moment in the spotlight, from marketing to officiating to now business strategy. The growing consensus among pundits is simple. The WNBA had a winning lottery ticket and somehow they're trying to tear it in half. The rage narrative is quickly becoming the defining story of the league, completely overshadowing the actual basketball. When news of the opt-out broke, the reaction wasn't supportive. It was brutal. The dominant response was, "Wait, are they crazy?" The general public sees packed arenas and assumes the league is swimming in cash. But media insiders know the truth. The margins are still razor thin. Yes, the new TV deal is massive, but it hasn't fully kicked in yet. The players are effectively spending money that hasn't even hit the bank. That disconnect between public perception and financial reality is being amplified by players' social media, where they constantly post about their value. It creates a pressure cooker. Fans expect players to get paid. Owners know they can't afford it yet. And the players are prepared to strike if they don't get it. Everyone is locked in and nobody is blinking. Now circle back to that image of Caitlin Clark at Nike headquarters, because it's the perfect visual metaphor for this entire saga. While the union gears up for what could become a dirty public battle over salary caps and revenue sharing, Clark is sitting in a design lab, quietly building the future. Nike isn't worried about the CBA. They're betting on Clark the individual, not the WNBA as an institution. That distinction is everything. If the WNBA implodes due to greed or mismanagement, Clark's brand survived. She's transcended the league in less than a year. The rest of the players don't have that luxury. They need the WNBA to exist. They need the infrastructure, the games, the TV windows. And that's why this rage is so dangerous. If emotions toward Clark dictate business strategy, they risk destroying the very vehicle that allows them to play professionally. The Nike visit proves the market has already moved to the next level. Clark is operating as a global icon. The union is operating like a local guild. The gap in sophistication and leverage is staggering. And StephenASmith is essentially shouting from the rooftops that the players need to wake up before they crash the car. So where does this go from here? The clock is ticking. The current agreement technically stays in place for another year, but the negotiations start now. There will be leak after leak. Stories about cheap owners will clash with counter-stories about delusional players. It's going to get ugly. The rage Stephen A. Smith keeps talking about is about to spill fully into the public eye. And all eyes are now on Caitlin Clark. Does she speak up for the union? Or does she stay silent and focus on her Nike deal? Her voice is the most powerful weapon in this entire fight. But after how she's been treated, does she have any incentive to use it? Why would she go to bat for people who tried to ice her out? That's the wild card. If Clark decides to sit this out and focus on her shoe launch, the union loses its single biggest bargaining chip. The next few months will determine whether the WNBA rises into a true sports powerhouse or collapses under the weight of its own ego. The league is playing a high-stakes game of poker with a hand it didn't deal itself. By opting out of the CBA just as Clark solidifies her billionaire potential status with Nike, the players have drawn a line in the sand. They want to be paid like superstars, but the market is screaming that there is only one true superstar driving the ship. If the league and the players can't figure out how to divide this new wealth without letting jealousy rot the foundation, they may fumble the biggest bag in sports history. The question isn't whether they deserve more money. It's whether they understand who is actually signing the check. The rage is real. The stakes are massive. And for the first time, the entire world is watching to see whether the WNBA conquers the moment or crumbles under it. But that still wasn't the whole story. Because what happens next shocked everyone.